So this episode is really fun. So imagine leaving a country where you train, the hospital where you learn to move fast under pressure, and the early practice where you kind of developed your eye and then decided to rebuild your life and business and identity somewhere else. So that is the story that we're going to get in today with Brad and Danielle Mathers. They did not inherit a legacy practice. They actually built the Luxe Room together and grew into an Inc. recognized company while also creating the Lads Room, a men's focused brand that speaks to one of the most underbuilt segments in medical aesthetics. So Danielle's was from the United States, but she moved to Queensland, Australia, and she was a trauma and cosmetic surgery nurse. And she came to the United States with Brad. And before that, he was on the growth side of business, and he actually was in digital marketing in Australia. And so, what makes this conversation so interesting is their second brand that sits at this real market shift. And so, data has indicated that men's share of the market is going to move roughly from 5% to 10% by the end of this year. And that male patients in the cited data set spent more per visit and more per year rather, once required. And so what we're going to talk about today is where aesthetic is going, where luxury is needed, and how identity becomes strategy. So let's bring them in the room. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Diamond Hands podcast. Today we have one of the sexiest couples in medical aesthetics with us, Brad and Danielle Mathers. And so, what we're going to kind of talk about today, we're going to be talking about a couple different things. I always love to find out like your origin story, how you guys started your business and what makes you the success you are today. So we're really going to get into it. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so
what an
much.
Introduction.
Really excited.
You're welcome. Yeah. So just so you guys know too, so Brad and Danielle have owned the Luxe Room. It's what, 7 years now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 7 years.
Yeah.
7 years and 5 years since we opened the first location.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. And just so you guys don't know, so you know who you're talking to, you guys were also named to Inc. 5000. And that was like 2 years ago, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they're doing the damn thing. So before the Luxe Room, what did you guys do, or what do you guys believe that you were building towards before you actually started the Luxe Room? Because, that started out of something. So what was the ethos of everything you were doing before that?
Yeah, I mean, we were kind of aiming to do something where it was a business, or for me, it was a med spa that I wish I could have worked at. I really enjoyed the patient interactions, helping them feel truly like they were really heard. There was a bigger purpose for them as well, and just kind of fell into building our own thing and working towards that goal.
Yeah, it's a really interesting story how we got started. When we arrived to America from Australia, Danielle actually went into a med spa here run by a doctor and asked for a job as an injector. And at the time, he didn't have any positions available. But he did have a spare room that he wasn't using, and he said, "You can basically use this room, and on a profit share agreement." So it was a really interesting deal.
Yeah.
And at the time, it allowed us to try out working together and see how that was with very minimal risk, like financial risk, because this deal was interesting. It was, you can use the room, you can use all the lasers, you can use my front desk to check out your stuff, and then every 2 weeks when I run payroll, I'll basically look at the revenue you brought in from your room. I'll take out the cost of goods, and then you can have, I think it was 30% of the profit left over. So it wasn't an amazing deal, but it was at the time because it allowed us to test out how we could run a business together and organically without any financial risk.
Yeah,
So,
I didn't want my own thing originally. It seemed a little too scary. So this kind of seemed like a nice little dip your toe in route, I guess.
Yeah, no, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. So from the very beginning, Brad, you were here from the very beginning, working behind her operationally from the very top.
Even from that, I mean, that's why it started out being called the Luxe Room, because it was a single room, and it was Danielle all day just injecting and using the lasers as well, which is an important part of that beginning story. But in the back end, I was running ads and websites and had everything pushing traffic into this single room, and it grew pretty quickly from there. So
yeah, we put in the Luxe Clinic as well, but used the room first and then we just left it. So Luxe
Well,
Clinic is
I
out
was
there
always
somewhere.
playing to it, the Luxe Room, right? And so like, with that, so you guys from Australia, so and I always like respect people who come from another country. And just, my husband did the same thing too. And it's just like, whoa, like you're coming here, it's a different culture. Not too much with Australia and America, but it's still different, right? And you have to start fresh, put down new
Yeah.
roots. So what do you think that kind of emigrating to like America, like how do you feel that changed your relationship to like ambition, security, and risk? Because there's a lot of people who live here who won't even start something.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm originally from the States, moved away when I was 18, and we were in Rome for 3 years and then Australia for 10. And so, therefore, it did feel like, at least for me, almost like immigration because you don't have credit history, you don't have any background. And so, yeah, as far as getting a loan, as far as getting even a rent of a house when we first got here, there was no history for it. So, we kind of just had to deal with it and bootstrap everything. But you also have nothing to lose, it felt like. So we didn't know anyone. So yeah, it made it a little less scary in that sense.
I love that. And like, so like when you were in this little room in this doctor's office, and like at what point were you and Brad like, oh shit, like this might be like a little something. Like let's get out of here. Like when was that moment?
I think like after about a year, like Danielle had a 3-month wait list for the room. So it was at that time where it's like, okay, how do we, what
What's
options
next
are
step?
available to us? And like Danielle said, we didn't have any credit scores or anything like that. So we've bootstrapped from day one. And but right at that point, it was COVID hit in 2020.
Yes.
And there was a 3-month shutdown here in Colorado. And luckily we didn't have any of that. We didn't have to pay rent. Like we were renting this room on a profit share agreement. So our expenses, we didn't have any liabilities, so we were able to weather that storm. But at that same time, we started looking around for spaces around Denver. And at that time, there's not many people were looking for commercial real estate
True.
coming out of the lockdown. So we're able to get a pretty good deal. And we just took the risk
And started funneling patients. Like I decided at that point that I didn't want to do skin and laser anymore. Yeah, when we found our place that we wanted to build into our own space, I made the decision not to do skin and laser anymore. So it gave me a bit of a runway to start referring patients onto an esthetician that I would hire, and started allowing for bookings to kind of flow onto the space that we didn't even have quite ready yet. So that was another soft landing that we had when we opened our own clinic.
That's amazing. And so like during that time, during like, COVID, and I kind of hate talking about COVID. I feel like it's one of those like things where you're just like, okay, it happened, whatever. But it's just like, like during COVID, that time, it's like, did you have any like fear about the business that you were starting, or like, what was your mindset around that time when like everything closed down? You're like, okay, people can't come in.
I mean, just not knowing if it's going to happen again. And now we do have risk, and we just had our son. So there was a little bit more to it. So yeah, there was a little bit of worry, I would say.
Yeah, during the shutdown, I was like, what happens when it opens back up? Like, are these customers coming back? Is the landscape going to be, the same as it was, or completely different? But
yeah, that makes sense. But obviously, like it worked out because, people were like, oh my goodness, I'm looking at myself in Zoom. I see my face and I don't have Danielle. Like, what the hell? We gotta go back.
No, they were ready. We're all ready.
Everybody was ready. Like, I'm ready right now. But like, so my question for you, so how did you go into building the brand that you have today, right? Because it's one thing, because everyone says that they're luxury, everyone says that they're a premium experience, but are they really? And so from an operational standpoint, I want to ask you, Brad, how did you and Danielle make sure that from booking to what the experience in the practice is a cohesive premium brand experience? And what do you do on the inside clinically as well, Danielle, to make sure that is a luxury experience? And what does that mean to you guys?
I think like luxury in hospitality or in the service business like we're in, it really boils down to like the absence of friction. So how easy is it for someone to, use your service or buy your product or whatever you're selling and offering? But we really, and even from day one, we really got like inside the minds of our potential customer before they've even like gone to Google to find a solution to what they're looking for, right? So it's like you have to really dial it back and think, okay, of course, first of all, who's the perfect customer? Where are they going to find you when they start looking for this solution? And from day one, we focused, really heavily on SEO and these things like that to make sure that we were showing up where they're searching. But then also like, what is going to make them make that decision that they have full trust in this clinic? So visually confirming all through reviews and before and afters and all of this stuff. Just help them make that decision that
it's the right place.
that they're in good hands. Yeah,
and I think that's a unique perspective that we have, and where we're lucky that we work so well together and that we have this skill set that works really well together, because of course I'm in the treatment room giving that, or getting even that perspective from the patient, getting the feedback from the patient, the what brought you in, all the little isms as well, relaying that back to Brad, who's always been a whiz at marketing, and building the business on the operational side. So it really works well together, and I think that's a unique perspective that we've been able to use to our advantage.
Yeah, 100%. Because I mean, it's like what you guys have together is what many people are searching for, right? Because it's like, vision, then you have person technician, then you have manager. And it's not often that you find that, your peanut butter to your jelly, so to speak. And so you guys can kind of do that together. And I think that's the reason why you guys are so strong, because you do have the vision, the clinical experience, then you have the operational excellence on the other side. It's just like, okay. It's like balancing each other out, right?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of our listeners are newer practice owners, and they're by themselves in a room, and they're in their own room, but they don't have a Brad.
Right. Yeah, it would make it super difficult. I mean, I didn't have the background that Brad has at all, so I can see how it gets tricky. But you'll find your people, and it takes a while, trial and error.
So how do you feel the business would be different, Danielle? Because, we're going to get to the loud room in a second, but, with the Luxe Room, like, how do you feel your business would be different if you didn't have that operational backbone? Like, do you feel you'd be, like, you guys wouldn't be rearching without each other, obviously, but where do you feel it would be?
I suppose, again, being that I didn't have the entrepreneurial background in the first place, I do believe it still would have been a great patient experience. I would have had a good team, but the growth and therefore, more opportunities for staff that we are allowed, or that we're able to offer, I don't think we would have been able to have that without Brad, for sure.
So, like, what is your background, Brad? So, what were you doing before you actually started the Luxe Room at Danielle?
So in Australia, I had a digital marketing company where I was doing basically marketing, SEO, website development for service-based businesses and some online coaches and stuff like that. I knew when we got here and we wanted to have a crack at this, we would have a very strong sort of digital presence. And Danielle, as a clinician, is phenomenal. So it was a perfect storm there. And it's such a visual industry. We're so blessed to have just these before and after photos and client stories and testimonials, and all this stuff is just amazing to do marketing with.
I know, because you have a good product, actually.
That helps.
Yeah, I know. It's funny. I always say, like, when people are, because sometimes people try to do it the backwards way. It's like they don't have anything good on the inside, but then they're trying to, put a Band-Aid on it. And it's like, that is going to lead to bad things.
Yeah.
At the time.
100%. They know when it's a stock photo.
Yeah. Or you might get them in one time, but if it's not congruent once they come into the clinic, then they're not going to come back. So.
Right.
Exactly. And so in your experience, Danielle, like, what should a patient feel in the first 5 minutes when they come in to, say, maybe going back to Brad's word, frictionless, when they come in? What should kind of be that first 5-minute experience that is universal across the board?
I mean, they should feel like this is what they expected or better, as in, like, whatever you're putting out there as far as the marketing, testimonials, the before and afters, even down to, your Google listing that has photos of the clinic. Like, it should feel like that when they walk in, so that they know that they made the right decision. A lot of friendliness. They should feel welcome. They're in a vulnerable place a lot of times when they come in to get anything done. Yeah, complete no judgment. They should feel welcome, down to the smell of the clinic, everything. Everything should kind of give a tick that they've made the right choice.
Yeah. And for you, because I know not everybody likes to have their pictures posted and things like that. Because, when you're dealing with different levels of clientele,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the higher the net worth, the more they're going to be like, oh, hell no, you're not posting
Yeah.
me anywhere.
100%.
And so I do want to ask you,
Uh-huh.
so how do you, for you, like, how does discretion show up in the design of your patient journey? Because not everybody wants to be posted. So how do you
Mhm.
handle that, when you're
I
building?
think even as simple as within our photo consent, there's a lot of options and there's never any pressure. We send them all the consents beforehand as well. A lot of patients don't mind, at least here in Denver, it's a bigger city as well. A lot of patients don't mind if you post like lip before and afters because no one really will know who they are.
Yeah.
Hence why everyone is so easy to get lip before and afters. But at least that shows your artistic ability. And,
Mhm.
I do find a lot of people, at least in this, I hate to say generation, but right now I feel like a lot of people don't care as much as they used to. When I was working at a med spa in Australia, it was a lot harder. And Instagram wasn't as big of a thing back then either. So it was a lot harder to get to show off your work and your abilities. Whereas I feel like now people don't mind as much. A lot of people do, but there's enough that certainly don't mind, that do want to be showed off a little bit. So that helps for sure.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
Mhm.
And anything you want to add to that, Brad?
No, I'm not in the treatment room, so
Far from it.
yeah, I really have those conversations.
Yeah, a big thing that I think seeing you guys do, you've kind of built kind of a category, not just a practice, right? And I really love that. And so I do want to ask you, like, how do you think about competition in the aesthetics market?
And competition has always been there, and it always will be. I think
Mm,
even since we started 5 years ago, I
Hmm.
would say competition's probably tripled here in town.
Hmm.
But we
Sure.
we really don't spend a lot of time obsessing over competitors or anything like that. We
mm,
focus a lot of our time just on that patient experience and making
Hmm.
sure
mhm,
that when people come in, like, why would they want to go anywhere else? Making sure that we've made sure they had an emotional connection. They've left
mhm,
feeling really good, and that comes down to again the whole journey from when they started searching for a solution to their problem to when they walk out the door. How are they feeling?
mhm.
They had a great experience.
Hmm.
Yeah, I feel like if you focus on competition, and we do see it a lot, and people try to copy competition and stuff like that, but if you're copying competition, you really just you're two steps behind, right?
Hmm.
Well, but it's true. And with that too, and I love what you just said. If you're copying competition, you're literally two steps behind because a competitive person is always thinking about the next thing and they're making moves that you're not even going to see off the surface. Always,
Right.
right? So with that, I know when I do like my reading and things like that, and it's like a lot of the brands that we think of luxurious, for example, right? It's
Hmm.
like they might be looking. Of course, they have a department or something, but at the same time, it's more identity. It's more like, who are we? What do we stand for? Who are the people that we're trying to attract into our club? And we only focus on that. We don't care about the people who love Tarjay. We don't care about the people who love Tory Burch. No, we only care about the people who love Chanel. So, like, tell me more about that, like building identity into your brand, how that seeps into who you hire, who you
Mhm.
attract as patients, all of that, and how that relates to competition or lack of it, rather.
I think from like the beginning, it started as Danielle in the room, and
Mhm.
Danielle's clients were so sticky to Danielle. So
Hmm.
early on, we're like, how do we create this brand where people are comfortable coming into the Luxe Room and they know that they're going to have the same result and the same experience no matter who they see,
Hmm.
and like building that story about the safety, the ongoing training,
Mhm.
um, and all of that tying into the marketing
Hmm.
has, I feel like it's bolstered the brand as people come in and they do expect a certain level of
Hmm.
experience with the Luxe Room, and I think we do a pretty good job of
Yeah.
making sure no matter where they go and who they see in the organization, they're going to have the same experience and result.
Yeah. And especially down to staffing too. I mean, obviously, early days probably made some staffing mistakes or hiring mistakes. But I feel like just trying to, at least in the end, when you're kind of formulating a team, just in the end asking yourself, am I really comfortable referring to them? do I do that with enthusiasm if my patients can't see myself anymore? And that should give you your answer. Or am I comfortable sending my mom to them? And all of that just makes sure that, if you can answer that really enthusiastically, then, your patients can as well. And therefore you just kind of, in a way, duplicate the experience that the patients had with you, so you can keep building your brand.
Exactly. And because many times it does start out with the creator, right? And in this case, Danielle, you are the creator. You are it's the house of the Luxe Room. And you're the creator of the house, right? and you think about that, it usually starts with a creator and the following of the creator, but then you have to systemize how the creator makes people feel, And so how does one go from, okay, the cult of Danielle to then the cult of the Luxe Room? How do you, and I'll ask you, Brad, how do you standardize that into procedures? Do you just look at how Danielle does things and say, okay, we're going to make this a process? Tell me how you've done that.
Well, I think Danielle can talk about the clinical training and how she prepares everyone to deliver the same results and experience across the patient side.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, very hands-on when we first get new team members. So very hands-on with the training. It's always done with myself. We do a lot of internal surveys. So really trying to keep a close eye on not the team in a way that we don't trust, but just so that, we can help them learn how to deliver the same results and experience that got us in the first place. And we do a lot of ongoing training as well. And a lot of, even now we're doing around with every single injector that we've got, where we'll inject a patient together just to learn from each other, but also just so that I know that we're, still delivering really nice results in the room, down to techniques. We can all learn more, even myself, obviously. So we just do a lot of really close touch points with the team along the way. Yeah. And making sure it feels like a really positive culture and a place where they can come to me if they have questions about anything at all.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And is it written down? How do you know someone is not missing the mark? And you don't talk about, obviously you've had past experiences, we all have, with past team members, whatever. But how do you know someone's not hitting the mark? Is there something that's codified on paper? This is what we stand for. This is how we do things. And how do you know they're not missing the mark?
Yes, but I think, more than that, we do a lot of randomized internal surveys as well to patients to get their full experience. We get a lot of people that answer that. So, taking it seriously, but also taking some things with a grain of salt and really being in touch with the providers about patient experiences that have been had. When you start to see, maybe issues with the internal surveys or issues with certain KPIs not being met, you just put that bigger picture together, which, it's good being the owner as a clinician, because you can see it from a bigger lens and a clinical lens as well, to help give coaching to those team members. So if those marks keep getting hit or not hit, you go through a process and try to work through that. But yeah, those are usually kind of the ways that we monitor that, I would say, internally.
Now I'm moving to the lads room a little bit, right? And so I do know with statistics, we've seen that men, they're harder to get in as a patient, right? But once they do come in, they do have a higher average spend and they do have a higher lifetime value, because a man's not just going to let 5 million people poke into his face. Women were like, oh my goodness, I actually did my lips. We're going to go somewhere else. So, but a woman might go to a place much faster than a man would. So tell me more about that, Brad. Why did you feel that men needed their own brand and not just a different branch inside, the Luxe Room?
Sure. So we've seen over the past 5 years, we've seen a slow increase in male patients coming in. And I get a lot of feedback from Danielle and the team. And guys come in and they might not be fully comfortable on their first time. They might be a little nervous. The environment, as much as you try to make it gender neutral, it definitely leans, feminine, I'd say. So it's just with that feedback as well. We wanted to create an environment that would provide that really good first experience and try to break down that first barrier of nervousness of I'm going to a med spa. No, I'm going to a men's aesthetic clinic now. We're definitely early, but we do see the writing on the wall where it's going.
Yeah.
There's about 5% right now of the industry is the male population, and we definitely see that doubling pretty quickly here.
But if it's 5% now, when the industry is very still feminine leaning, then if you have a place where guys feel like this is a place where other men will be in the waiting room and that they're trained to not make me look feminine. And that's a message that you put across in marketing. It starts to create a bit of a safer space where they can go with less worry. So that's what we're seeing. And that's a lot of the feedback that you get in the treatment rooms, because a lot of the guys that come in have been brought in by their partner, have no idea what they want or need or, anything like that. And so I think a place that gives that signal that it's, a little bit more certainty around what they're going to get would be a safer place for the male population to come in as well.
Yeah. And as a guy that's not exposed to aesthetics, like you look at a website and you see all these treatments and services and lasers, and it's pretty overwhelming. So I think having a separate business with a simplified menu, simplified messaging, really speaking to the male persona, I feel like the time was right for us to have a go at it anyway. So,
well, yeah, I mean, and I think that's what happens is like the people that are able to see the trends early and say, "Ooh, this is actually going to be something," just because you guys have a spidey sense, it's just like you saw that, okay, the med spa world, this is actually kind of blowing up. Let's start our own thing. And now you're seeing men's aesthetics, and you're like, let's give them their own space instead of trying to carve out a space for them inside a more feminine focused place, because I've seen practices and they're like nice and pink and like flowery, roses everywhere. Like a man's gonna be like, yeah, I'm going here to go get my treatments. They'll be like, oh, the butterfly room later, you're sad. You're like, and like if he's not like that, and if he presents as what we traditionally call as masculine, he's not going to feel comfortable in those spaces. Just like if you say, oh, we're going to do your med spa treatments for girls in a cigar room or something that looks like that, we'd be like, wait, no. And I think that's really great that you guys are moving towards, moving towards making a space for men. And what has that taught you guys about trust, vanity, pride, shame when it comes to men in aesthetics and how they even feel about themselves, like getting treatments?
Yeah,
like
again,
sorry.
Yeah, we're still early as well, like as I said before, and it's really breaking down some stigmas. I feel like it's still a lot of education required. Even just focusing on neurotoxin alone, which I see this is the biggest growth opportunity for men over the next couple of years here. But just most men don't know what Botox is. They think if they have Botox, they might have, ducky lips or something.
Yeah.
So it's really just a bit more education and, and just a couple of simple treatments go a long way with men. Like they don't want to, like to Danielle's point, they don't want to ask. They just want to be told what can I, what's a couple of things I can do this year to look younger and to look a bit fresher. So.
Agree.
Yeah, and that's true. And so if a business owner out there who's listening can't build a separate men's brand, what are 3, would you say, identity level changes that they could make now in their practice or in their marketing to make men say, oh, this is a place that you can come to?
I mean, the low-hanging fruit is if you have a lot of, female patients, how do you incentivize bringing their partners in or making it more comfortable for them to bring their partners in? So that's like, step one. And, it's just really thinking about the psychology of what the man's going through when they're coming in for the first time, and then just thinking through that experience from their perspective and how you can make that more comfortable for them. And to your point, like once they come in once, they're very comfortable coming 2-3 times, and they're very sticky. Making sure that you've made that first experience really, really comfortable.
Yeah. So it comes down. So if someone has a practice and they don't have a lads room, so like you said, think about the psychology of how you're talking to them or what have you. Make it simple for them. Then low hanging fruit. So those of you who have practices and you're newer, talk to your girlies and say, bring your man in. We'll do something for you guys together. And he can have the excuse too that, oh yeah, I'm taking my wife to her treatment.
100%. Yeah,
and so no one has to know.
And we've done that before. We've done that before where we've had promos where, bring your guy in, especially on Father's Day month. Bring your man in and we'll treat one area for free, because then they'll come back, to Brad's point. They'll come back once they're sticky, and then they see it's not so scary to get back.
Exactly. I love that. And so with that, as you guys have been building your business together and you guys are just having all these business babies. What do you think has been like the hardest season of building together? Because I know as a married woman, I've had seasons where I'm like, with my husband, I'm like, like, he's like, it's my business partner. And then it's also my partner in life. Like, what would you kind of like give advice to people who are out there possibly building with their partner? And if you've had those seasons of like, ooh, this is interesting, how do you kind of push through those and separate business partner from this is my boo?
You know, we don't have a work-life balance. We don't know what that means. We talk about work at home, but I don't know. I would say just make it really clear whether it's your partner in life or just a business partner. Just be very, very clear on, I guess, what your lane is, or where your authority kind of lies as far as your knowledge base too. So once you're clear on that, then you can really lean on the other person to make those complementary decisions. Or understand your strengths really.
Yeah, we have our complementary skill sets that don't overlap much in the business. So we're completely in our own lanes. We have full trust in each other in our perspective lanes and what we're making decisions on. I think as well, we got 2 young kids at home. So if it's a husband and wife team doing this as a family unit, it's really about understanding those seasons. To your point as well, like sometimes someone's going to be really busy doing one thing at one time, and you have to be. You have to be the one, looking after the kids and doing this and not keeping score is the biggest thing, right? It's just like having full trust that, those seasons come around and it's just, if you have to keep a scorecard, it's not going to really work out well, but having flexibility.
Yeah, just all you resentful baddies out there, you heard that? Don't keep it. And I love that. And so like for you guys, like, what support systems have made this level of growth possible with children at home? Because I think your youngest baby is like 4, right? Like you have a crazy toddler running around, ripping the world up. So it's like, what level of infrastructure have you built around yourself so that you can kind of accommodate? Because there was an article that had come out and people were like being so upset with this woman. The woman, I forget her name. She's a part investor in Skims and something else. And she said, I'm at best a 2-hour mother. And the world came for her. But the world doesn't come for men who are 2-hour dads because they're out there doing what they have to do, but they built infrastructure around themselves. So what infrastructure have you built around yourself? Or to the ambitious woman who wants to rule the world and what they're doing, what do you build around yourself?
I mean, we're lucky that just really allowing people to help is a big thing, learning about delegation. But for us, we're lucky enough to have my mom here. So there's a lot of support around that, having support with the kids for sure. And then making sure that kind of back to formulating your team, that it's team members that you can really trust, that you can start to delegate things off to as well, so that you do have more time with your family. So yeah, I would say building a really strong team around you in general, whether it's at work or back at home.
Yeah, it's really the team that we've been able to build over the last 5 years. They're incredible people. And, we have trust in all of them to deliver, exceptional results. And it's really, the growth wouldn't be possible without the team that we have here. So,
And I love that because you need both the team. And I love how you guys say that you need both the team at work and at home because that's what keeps things going. As long as children have someone who loves them and cares for them around them, they'll be okay when mom and dad can give their best energy to them when they're not busy at work, right? Yeah. And at work, when people know that they're cared for or supported, then you can give your best energy to them while you're there too. So having those teams on both fronts, I think sometimes they don't have the teams on both fronts and they don't optimize for the teams on both fronts. I'm like, baby, instead of buying the Hermes, get yourself a babysitter. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100% priorities. Yeah.
Priorities. And I love it. Kind of wrap it up. I do want to ask you, so what is one belief that you hold about medical aesthetics that most people in the industry that are coming in still kind of underestimate?
I would say, I think people underestimate what the sacrifices are, whether it's in aesthetics or whatever business it is. I think the sacrifices that you have to make, it's really a big sacrifice on time. It's sacrifice with time with your kids, with your husband or your partner, that those sacrifices really do hurt. But from the outside, it looks kind of easy because, of course, you're not going to always share those sacrifices to the world. So yeah, it takes a toll. And for us, it's been worth it. it's been fun, but yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, it ain't easy.
No, it's not easy. And with that, like, what advice would you give to people who are starting their journey? They're still in that honeymoon phase. They're just like, oh my goodness, I just got my distributors, I just got my people together, and they're thinking it's going to be like this fun thing. Maybe they did a little build out.
Yeah.
What would you tell them, advice to give them to kind of weather those storms? Like, what do you need to weather those inevitable storms that are going to come?
Mm-hmm.
I think getting started, you don't want to get into too much debt. You don't want to put too much pressure on yourself or the business. You want to sort of grow organically. Really think about why people are going to choose you over someone else, and how do you portray that in your messaging, and how are you going to put that in front of them so that they are able to find that messaging. All of that stuff. Like if you can't, you really have to think about that client acquisition funnel and what sets you apart. But then also, not going too crazy, just not having too much pressure on yourself in those early stages is going to allow you to really focus on the customer experience.
And also, when you talk about weathering storms, there's a lot of things that are really, really hard that you probably want to blame other people, events. You want to blame other things, and sometimes you just have to work through that and just deal with it and not play the blame game. I see that happen a lot, and I think it's unfortunate. You just have to eat it sometimes and move forward. Just kind of being strong that way.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I do want to ask just one question there. It's just like, has there ever been any point, you can give a specific example if you want, but it's like, has there ever been a point where you wanted to blame someone else for something that happened? Or how much do you kind of say the buck stops with me, this is all me? Like are you the person that takes like hyper responsibility or in the middle, like, or how's that changed?
I mean, internally, sometimes there's things that you want to blame, like I was saying, whether it's other people or just things that you can't really help. But in the end, if you're the owner of the practice, you are the leader. And so, in the end, it is up to you. And if mistakes happen, it's on you, and you just have to kind of be the leader that makes change and makes it better for your team and for yourself, for your family next time.
Yeah,
100%.
All right. Well, guys, thanks so much for sharing time with me today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. So guys, we'll have all the notes about them in the show notes or what have you. So you'll be able to find the Luxe Room, the Ladder Room, stock their business if you want. Yeah. So thank you so much for your time. Until next time, guys.
Thank you, Leslie.
Thanks, Leslie.
Cheers.
Bye.
Want more clarity like this? Join the Branded Practice newsletter community. I write about strategy, systems, and brand leadership straight to your inbox. Go to diamondhandsmedia.com to sign up. And if this episode hit, share it with someone still building without a brand. This is the Diamond Hands Podcast. Thanks for listening. Now go lead.